All right, welcome back everyone to the deep dive. Today we're diving into, well, you could say the very heart of Indonesian politics. We're talking about a really significant decision from the Constitutional Court, the MK. It just came out August 20th of this year, 2024.
Absolutely. This is one to watch for sure.
Yeah, and it's all about who gets to be in the running for those really powerful regional head positions. We're talking governors, regents, mayors. And, well, let's just say it's going to have a big impact on how political parties operate, especially those who haven't yet managed to snag seats in those local parliaments, the DPRD.
You got it. See, the system as it was kind of like, well, to even get your party's candidate on the ballot, you often already needed to have a bunch of seats in the DPRD or a really significant chunk of the votes from the area.
Yeah, that does sound like it would make things pretty tough for any new parties trying to break through or even smaller parties trying to gain some more traction.
Exactly, a real uphill battle.
Yeah.
But now, the MK, they've gone and shaken things up.
Okay, so what exactly did the MK change? What's the big shift here?
Well, the court looked at petitions from two parties, the Labor Party and the Jalora Party, and they agreed with some of their points. They actually revised the rules around how parties get to nominate their candidates. This is all laid out in the regional head election law, by the way. And the big thing is, they've moved away from focusing only on how many DPRD seats a party has.
So if it's not about the DPRD seats anymore, what are they using instead?
Now it's all about looking at the total number of voters in a province or a regency or city, and then how many of those votes went to each party in the previous national election. They're using these percentages to decide who can nominate.
Percentages, huh? So how do they actually calculate all that? It sounds kind of complicated.
It's a tiered system,
Hmm.
actually. So let's say you're looking at a province with not too many voters, like under 2 million. A party would need to have gotten at least 10% of the valid votes from the last election to even be able to put a candidate forward.
10%. Okay. And I'm guessing that changes if you have a more populous area.
Yeah, you got it. As the number of voters in a province goes up, you get into those categories of 2 to 6 million voters, 6 to 12 million, and then anything above 12 million, well, that required percentage actually goes down a bit. So for those really big provinces with tons of voters, a party only needs 6.5% of the valid votes to nominate someone.
So the bigger the pool of voters, the slightly easier it is for a party to get their foot in the door. Interesting.
You could say that. And it's a pretty similar setup for the regencies and cities, those smaller regional areas.
Hmm.
The bar starts at 10% for the places with, say, under 250,000 voters, and then it gradually drops down to, you guessed it, 6.5% for the places with over 1 million voters.
Okay, so they've revamped this whole percentage system, but didn't the MK also get rid of another part of the law? Something about that alternative pathway to nomination.
They did, and this is a big one. Before, if a party didn't manage to get enough DPRD seats, there was this sort of backup option. They could still nominate a candidate if their overall vote count was really high, like 25% or something. But get this, that loophole, it was only available to parties that already had at least some seats in the DPRD.
Wow, talk about a catch-22. So if you were a newer party trying to, make a name for yourself, you were basically stuck. What was the court's reasoning for getting rid of that rule?
Well, the MK justices, they basically said, look, it's just not fair to penalize parties who have shown they have some real support among voters, even if they didn't win any DPRD seats in the process. They saw it as a violation of that core principle of democratic local elections where the people directly choose their leaders.
Makes sense. If a party has demonstrated they have a decent amount of voter support through those national election results, shouldn't they have a fair chance to put forward a candidate?
Exactly. And the court really hammered home that point. They even brought up the fact that individuals, regular folks not affiliated with any party, they can run for these positions too if they can gather enough signatures. So the MK was essentially saying, why make it so much tougher for parties that have already proven they have some level of popularity with the voters?
So it sounds like the court is really trying to level the playing field here.
That's the idea. Open things up, make it a bit more of a free-for-all maybe. Though it's worth noting, not all the justices were completely on board.
Oh, really? Were there any dissenting opinions within the MK itself?
Oh, yeah. There were some different perspectives. You had one justice who felt the ruling should have been more, I guess you could say, conditional, maybe with some kind of phasing in period or something. And then there's another justice who flat out disagreed. He thought the original law, the way it was perfectly fine.
Interesting. So there's still some debate going on, even within the court? Well, with all that in mind, what do you think is the biggest takeaway for our listeners as we head into these next regional elections?
I think the most crucial thing to remember is that this ruling has opened the door for parties who don't have any DPRD seats to actually nominate their own candidates for these regional head positions.
Uh-huh.
And their ticket to enter that race is directly tied to how much support they got in the last national election.
So we might see some new faces, some new parties shaking things up.
Oh, absolutely. This could really diversify the field of candidates. And, it makes you wonder, how will this new reality change the game for those big, well-established political parties? Will they have to rethink their strategies?
It's a great question. And what about those smaller parties or maybe even brand new political groups that are just starting out? Could this be their chance to gain some real momentum?
It's definitely possible. So it does make you think, if we do see a lot more new players entering the scene, could that create some new challenges when it comes to forming coalitions? Those alliances that are often necessary to actually govern effectively at the local level.
Absolutely. And it raises another question one our listeners can ponder. Will this shift lead to a more diverse range of leaders, maybe people with different backgrounds and perspectives? Or could it create instability, make it harder for local governments to function smoothly?
It's hard to say for sure. But one thing's for certain, this MK ruling has thrown a real wrench into the works. And it'll be fascinating to see how the political landscape in Indonesia's regions evolves in response. Definitely something to keep an eye on.
Well said. And that's all the time we have for today. Tune in next time for another deep dive. Thanks for listening, everybody.
See you next time.